Hi, I'm Alistair McGee and welcome to the OhioRAAM show.
Well, hello again, Lee Kreider here with the OhioRAAM show, a show about cycling and ultracycling, and we're getting ready to do show number 176. But first of all, we want to thank Alistair McGee from Airdrie, Scotland for that introduction. And you saw at the last there his father sticking his 2 cents in. My good friend Aidan McGee. You saw Elvis there in the background. I've known Aidan for a good many years. We've been close friends back in the days when the CompuServe network wasn't even on the internet, and we were a part of the cycling forum. Some of you remember CompuServe? You remember the cycling forum? This is a program of Time Stations 41 in Oxford, Ohio, and Time Stations 42 in Blanchester, Ohio. Time stations on the race across America, and we'll be telling you more about those as we get closer to that race in June. And we always want to make sure you check out the show notes that are on the OhioRAAMshow.com website, right below the video if you're there. And our guest today is Christian Mauduit from Argenteuil, France. Christian has been involved in a number of ultra sports, triathlons, long distance running, and things such as that. We'll hear more about that. He will be riding in the race across America in 2018. So without any further talk from me, let's get on to France and Christian Mauduit. We're headed over to France, and believe it or not, this is the first time the OhioRAAM show has ever been in France. Believe it or not. I don't know why it took us so long to get there. We've been all over the world, but we have with us Christian. Christian, how are you doing today?
I'm fine. We've been working today, and now, I'm off with my family, so that's fine.
Well, it's early afternoon here in Ohio, but it's getting toward evening there in France. And you live right on sort of the outskirts of Paris, don't you?
Yeah. I actually do work in Paris, and I bike to work. I did my little bike ride to come back from work, and now I'm home. Okay.
Well, tell us a little about yourself, Christian.
So generally speaking, I really enjoy long distance events, running especially, but cycling too. I really think I'm not a gifted person in the sense that when I was young, I was never the fastest guy or even the one that would run for a longer time. But at some point, I really enjoy being on my bike. I enjoy running. This is a pleasure, so I guess that's why I kept going. And one thing that is probably different from other racers, I imagine, is that I do not really enjoy suffering. I'm not doing this to suffer and be strong, whatever, blah, blah, blah. I do this because I enjoy achieving hard things. It's really important for me to finish the races. I'm really powered by this sense of achievement you get when you cross the finish line. But yeah, usually what I do is I try to make the thing simple, so make the journey something that is enjoyable, surround me with nice people, so my team is filled with nice people I enjoy being with, and I try and make myself comfortable if possible, and yeah, that's it.
So I looked here at your bio you sent me, and I find some interesting things. You said you won a DECA triathlon. Now, is that 10 triathlons back to back, or how does that work?
Oh, the one I did, it's been quite rare in the history of triathlons because I think it's really hard to organize. But the one I did is 23 miles in the water. Then you get out of the water and you do 100 and something miles on your bike. And then you run for 260 miles. That's it, yeah, right. So the one I did is all the swim, all the bike, which is about slightly more than 4 days, and all the run, which for me was 3.5 days. It did take me slightly more than 8 days. Actually, the world record is just about 8 days, but it took me a little more than this. At some point, I even thought I could, tackle the world record, but I was like 7 or 8 hours late, so I didn't have it. But it's not that bad. I won the race, so I was really happy. It was the first race I ever won in my whole life. It's like this is really a big surprise. I was showing up just to finish the race. I was expecting something like 10 days, and it took me slightly more than 8. So it was like, wow, this is. It was really a big surprise. This won't happen with RAM because I know, the figures and like I already studied the thing.
Well, Fred Bothling, the owner of Race Across America, he always says, be sure you know what your goal is before you start.
Yeah, definitely.
And it may not be to win. Is it the finish? Is it finish in a certain time? But have a goal.
Yeah, definitely. So mine is probably something like 5 hours below the time limit, because I think I would not feel comfortable if I had less than 5 hours. I would be stressed out and everything, but 5 minutes would be fine too,
Well, the other thing I saw here on your list is something called 6 jours. That would be 6 days, I believe, in English, if I remember my French. What's that all about?
6 days running is like, it's something really interesting. I got into that when preparing the Dakar Ironman. I was preparing for that the same way I'm preparing for RAM now. So at some point, I just acknowledged that I had never done something that long. So I needed to be on the track for something like 8 or 10 days. So I just figured out that there were these 6 days running events that were around, and it's really cheap to enter that because there's no logistics, no nothing. It's maybe like something like $300 for the complete race for a complete week. So it's kind of cheap, So the 6 days, you're just on a track, like on a loop that is usually about a mile, half a mile, whatever. And you just do as many laps as you can during 144 hours. And this was done in the 19th century. It's really, those races are really, really old. And they were done at that time. At that time, people would do, would bet on runners. Like they would bet that this runner would be in front, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Like there was like big money involved. And they were running like crazy distances at that time, like 500 miles and even more than that. And at some point, these races stopped and people started to do them again. And it took quite a time to achieve the distances they were doing before. But at the end of the 90s, I think like we were back to like big numbers. I think it was at some point, it was my thing. So I really enjoyed doing this. I usually feel good after day 3 or 4. That's where yeah, those races are crazy. Maybe not crazy as the RAM because you're sure to finish.
You brought something up. Back at the end of the 19th century, the beginning of the 20th, there was a lot of gambling associated with some of these kind of events, and also bicycling was heavily. It was like you had betting at the racetrack, and we had something. I didn't know that. Yeah, we had something here in the United States we called the 6-day bicycle race. It was held in a velodrome, and they actually had bunk beds alongside the track where the rider could pull over and pull in for a sleep, and those things went by the board for a long time. And I see you did Race Around Ireland. What year was that?
I was there in 2013, Race Around Ireland, and I say, hey, I might even be able to do the RAM after this. I mean, I might give it a try. So I just registered, hey, let's go there. And I went there. Anyway, I had a real nice time there, except for the weather. We had bad weather that year. Like we had I remember very well, we had 4 hours of normal weather. and then we get 40 hours of rain, like only rain. And it was, at some point I remember I was laughing on my bike because it was it didn't make any sense, all that rain. But anyway, it's a really beautiful race.
Well, Ireland, the Race Around Ireland is known for terrible weather, but I think this year, if I'm not mistaken, they had a halfway decent year.
And the weather is something you cannot change. So my opinion is that since you cannot change it, you should not complain about it.
In that vein, my wife and I, we've talked about this before. We had some of these horrible days, and sometimes here in the spring in Ohio, you can get rain, snow, wind, the whole everything that comes with it in one day. And we said, you know what? When you sit down and reminisce, those are the days you talk about. You know, you don't talk about the days where the sun shine, you had a tailwind all day.
Totally agree. Yep.
So
So
you're registered for the Race Across America in 2018, that correct?
yeah,
And you are racing in the under 50 solo male category.
yeah, because I'm under 50. I'm a male, and I don't know. I don't want to share those miles.
First of all, how did you qualify for the Race Across America?
Actually, my qualifying race is that race over on the island that is way too old to be officially qualified.
Yeah.
But I had an exchange with Fred. Actually, or was it Rick? I can't remember now. But the idea is that, I told them in the first place, oh, I would love to come in 2015 like earlier, but I couldn't because of family issue. So I've still been cycling, continuously since then. So, I don't think I lost my stamina or level, whatever. But to make sure I was in theory able to do it, I did register for a qualifying race early this year in September. So I was in Brands Hatch in September to do a 24 hours. And officially, I should be qualified for the RAM 2019 by doing that race because I did pass the limit there. So anyway.
Now I see you've got your RAM roster list. You've got a crew lined up already. Are you still looking for more crew?
Actually, I think the crew. I should update this because this is not up to date. But I'm possibly searching for one person, and I have basically there should be almost 12 of us there in America, so it's like big team. But I did really think a long time about it. My theory is that I want to have 3 vehicles so that some of them can take like a really long, deep, serious rest. Like my experience at the Race Around Ireland is that like there were only 2 vehicles, and like the second vehicle could never ever get really off the race and take a real rest. And at some point, my theory is that for 12 days you need a real rest. Maybe the racer can cope without it.
So Christian, how do you handle sleep on these long distance events, and how do you anticipate that for the Race Across America?
So for sleep, as far as sleep is concerned, I get a problem with the bike, with the cycling part, because what I do usually when I'm running is that I just keep going until I'm really tired, and I usually say, hey, I'm not going to bed before that time. Usually what I do is that I say, hey, I'm waking up at, let's say, 3 in the morning, and I would just go, like, if I feel good, I would go to bed only at 1 or 1:30 and say, hey, I'm only sleeping an hour and a half or an hour. And if I feel really tired, I would sleep 3 hours, which is a really long night. And so that's what I would do running. But on the bike, I got a problem. It's that if you're on the bike and you feel sleepy, it's dangerous. Okay?
Yes, that's right.
When I feel really tired and this is dangerous, I usually lie down for like a power nap. Usually like 1 or 2 minutes is enough. So you have to get used to it. But I just, like, if I'm really tired and it's dangerous, I would sleep in 30 seconds. So no problem. I just lie down for 2 or 3 minutes. So the crew has to be aware of this and everything. So I would just lie down. You don't get cold in 2 minutes. So you just get back on the bike, and I could ride for an hour more, or an hour and a half, whatever. I would try and sleep only at night if possible, because at night, my theory is that your body is not as strong as during the day, at least mine. Like this, the sun is really powering me. Like it's kind of magical when the sun rises. I would just, just power up and gain like something like 3 miles per hour. Yeah. So possibly, I think I would ask my crew to find some nice place to sleep every 3 or 4 days, I imagine, to have maybe take a shower or something. For the rest, I would just like sleep in the car and call it a day. That's it. get going.
It's
What I
it's interesting. It's interesting. Last year, I was down at Oxford Time Station when Strasser came in, and the crew came in ahead of time, or one of the crew members, and told all of us, no cheering, no bell ringing. We want you to be quiet. He's going to sleep here. And they start preparing him ahead of time as he's approaching where they have picked out to sleep to be quiet. They don't talk to him on the radio. And he's kind of starting to get into that sleep pattern before he ever pulls off. And they say within 2 or 3 minutes, they have him in bed asleep. What do you think is going to be your biggest challenge on the race across America?
base speed, because my base speed, like I'm not a fast cyclist. So basically I'm a runner. So like historically, I'm more of a runner. I got engaged in running because it requires less training than cycling. Like I love being on the bike, but it requires more time. So this year, okay, I'm committing to this, so I'm going to cycle a lot. But the point is, my legs are not that powerful, so I lack base speed. Like that's the basic thing that is missing in me. So what could happen, and what is really worrying me, is that I would that's my main concern, like failing to catch the time limit.
Well, again, as Fred says, stay on the bike and keep moving forward.
Yeah, you have to be moving forward fast enough. That's the point.
Or to quote Shauna Hogan, a slow pace is better than no pace.
Yeah, I know that. Yeah. Well, I usually tell people when doing all these running on tracks and etc. is that if you sit down on a chair, you score no miles. So just
exactly
get out and move.
Hey, Christian, thank you for being with us today and talking with us. We hope to be able to see you here in Ohio.
Yep.
And give you a good, warm Ohio welcome. We generally welcome most of our RAM riders with a rip-roaring thunderstorm with lightning and everything that goes with it. We like to give you some fireworks when you come to Ohio, and we probably will.
Just surprise me.
Well, we got a lot of good people here, Christian, who run the time stations. They'll do anything they can for you, help you in any way they can, and they're great people to look forward to, and we look forward to seeing you. Okay?
Yeah, I would be. I would love to be there, like in Ohio, and shake hands, have you meet my crew, and thanks for inviting me to this show. Obviously, thanks very much.
Thanks for being with us. Well, thanks, Christian, for being with us. We wish you well in the race across America, as we wish you well in many of your other ultra endeavors. We want to thank all of those of you who watch the show, and especially those who support the show on social media with your likes and your shares. We appreciate that a good deal. It is encouraging to hear from you, and if you have thoughts or suggestions, we always like to hear that too, and even criticisms. Now, our next show will be on January the 27th. We'll be having Michael Davies-Hughes from California, very new to ultracycling, and he will be racing in the Race Across America in 2018 as well. So we'll be looking forward to hearing from him. So we'll see you once again in about 10 days. Goodbye.
Music by Kevin MacLeod.